Hi everyone, this is Vicki Burley, the Rock and Roll Prophetess, and I'm coming at you today to talk a little bit about karma. Now we all have karma that we're dealing with in our lives, and it comes from all different places and all different parts of history and all different incarnations. It's not always just one little thing that we're working on. I would say it's never just one little thing that we're working on. And karmic lessons and your karmic path, it shows up in your chart. There's several things that we can look at, Saturn and the nodes and some other things that I can see it in your chart. I pick up past lives a lot. That seems to be part of my karma. So there's two things I want to talk a little bit about today. One is personal karma with people you were involved with on a one-to-one basis. And secondly, how there is group and race, there's all sorts of karma that we're dealing with. I want to get into that at the second half of this video. So the first part is personal karma. And the one thing I want people to understand is it's not always tit for tat. I learned this at my first Saturn return. I was breaking up with the father of my children, and this is when I first really was getting into regression and past lives and everything that was opening up to me. Now at that time, I was really in victim mode. I was totally in victim mode, and the reason I was getting into this was I wanted to find out what did I ever do to him? What did I ever do to deserve this? He was treating me so horribly and all this stuff. So I'm doing all these regressions. I had these tapes, these cassette tapes that I would listen to, self-hypnosis to regress myself, and everything I was seeing was in lifetime after lifetime with him was always him. He killed me, or I went along with him on some crime, and I ended up in jail my whole life. And then I even wrote in one of my journals, I said, I think he cut my head off. And so then I was at one of the psychic fairs. I used to work the psychic fairs a lot back then, and I was working at one of the fairs, and what a lot of readers will do is trade off readings with each other. So I was trading a reading with this lady, older lady, really cool, and she was getting into all this past life. It was synchronistic that I went to her, and she was telling me really cool stuff actually about being a musician in multiple incarnations and stuff in ancient Greece, music, playing a lyre or something. But then she got onto the topic of him, and she goes, I think he cut your head off. And I was just like, oh my God, I wrote that in my journal so that I knew that was confirmation A, that he did cut my head off, and B, it was that she was real. She was really tuning. She wasn't just telling crazy stories to appease me. We both got that same thing about the beheading. It was with a sword, actually. But she explained it to me right then, and it was totally enlightening, and I think a lot of people don't get this. See, it's not always tit for tat. In this case, the karma was that I had to not allow him to destroy my life, as he had by either murdering me or leading me astray, and we ended up in jail, and all these different things. I don't have to go along with his game plan. I don't have to keep allowing him to hurt me or cut. And it isn't that I'm supposed to go cut his head off in this life, It's that I'm supposed to stand up for myself and break free of the victim mode. So that was a big moment for me. It was like, oh wow, that changed everything. That just changed everything for me. And I think a lot of people really don't get that. And what it really ends up being is that you have to walk in another's shoes, or another's moccasins, as the Native Americans would say. Now, secondly, I want to talk a little about group karma and group things. Now, I want you to know that you've been every race. You've been male, you've been female, you've been every nationality, race in this world. So to hate anybody really is truly to hate yourself. And I'm going to just start by talking about a few things in me. I don't want anybody getting all up in arms. And I'm not trying to talk out of school or make anybody angry. I'm hoping that we're really going to, get it, get something here, get some enlightenment, as I have. During those times when I was doing all that regression, I saw more than one time that I was an abusive man. So I guess there was some karma, attached to, I wouldn't call him abusive, but there was things going on, oppressed. It's really all about oppression. And to try to oppress anybody for any reason or hate anybody for any reason, it's all going to come back to you. So as I was saying, I saw in more than one incarnation that I was an abusive man. And I feel like that's why me, and other women of my generation and a little before chose to incarnate at this time. When I was born in the 60s. And that, of course, was when the civil rights movement was happening. That, of course, was when the women's rights were happening. And, of course, I was too young to really be, I wasn't out there marching and burning my bra or anything. But I was here as part of the collective. And then I think that I had to incarnate as a woman to just be a part of that collective. And I remember one big thing that I remember when I was a child. I remember lots of things. Like we were not allowed to wear pants to school when I was a little kid. And in winter here, walking in your knee socks and your bare legs, I remember being able to wear pants to school. And I forget what grade it is. It was in elementary school, but it had changed. And I was just like, I remember sitting in class and rubbing on my two-tone suede bell bottoms. But I was just like, oh, I'm so grateful. I was just so excited, and I just kept looking down, and I remember that so vividly, that I could wear pants to school. But I mean, I'm a white person in America. I'm not saying that I was so oppressed in this incarnation. Clearly, I haven't been. But I wanted to touch on the Battle of the Sexes, and I looked it up. It was in 1973, and it was the big tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs. And, I was the little kid, but I was there rooting for Billie Jean King as part of this female collective, and I can remember just having, girls that are just as good as boys, and, being a little kid and all this sort of thing like that happening. So it was on a more playful, lighthearted level, but I was here as part of that collective, as a lot of women and sisters, were. But here's the thing, girls are better than boys, or boys are better than girls. You've been both. You've been a girl, you've been a boy, man, woman, you've been both. Believe me, you have. And so to want to lord over or oppress anybody for any reason, it really is crazy. You're hating yourself. You really are. And, you go back and forth in these incarnations, and you will walk in the other's shoes. That will happen. And I want to talk about oppression. In one of those lifetimes, now, I don't think I was where I was an abusive man, what I saw. I don't think they were slaves. I think they were actually my servants, but I treated them, they might as well have been slaves. I treated them very, very badly, and one of them actually killed me. I saw it. It was somebody that I actually know in this incarnation. Pulled out a gun out of a drawer, a little pistol, and shot me and killed me. But I deserved it. I was so mean and nasty to them. And I don't think they were slaves, although they were brown skin, but I feel like they may have been Native Americans or maybe from India. They had long, dark hair, and these women, and I feel like I was raping all of them too and having sex with them. And I looked like the guy from that movie, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, the oldest brother. I was this big guy with this curly red hair, and I was wearing black leather riding boots and white, I don't know, tights or, straight-legged pants, I don't know. But I was a total tyrant. And I was abusive and terrible to these women that worked for me. See, I feel like they were probably servants and worked for me. But there again, now I have to be, in this lifetime, I have to be a woman. But I also saw another life in ancient times. I don't know if it's Rome or Greece or whatever, but I was a slave. Now, my skin was lighter in the Caucasian side, but and I was a big man again. I was a big man in that life. And I wore some sort of harness. And I had to pull this heavy thing. I think it was some sort of plow or something that I probably, under normal circumstances, oxen would have pulled, or horses, but I was strapped into it. And that's why I feel like I saw that lifetime relating to why I always hated wearing a bra in this incarnation, because I couldn't stand to have those straps there, and I saw a flash of me in the field pulling this heavy thing. So I'd been a slave, and then in another life I may have owned slaved. So it goes back and forth like that. Because, African Americans weren't the only slaves throughout history. There's been also, the Jews were slaves. All sorts of people were slaves and oppressed. And I'm not even going to get into necessarily slavery, because that is a hot button topic, and as well it should be. But just the effect of oppressing another, being lording over or oppressing another, or treating them like a slave, or treating them less than, or less than human, you know. Anytime you look at another, anytime you're a hater, you know, you're really hating yourself. And I think your oversoul really is just looking down, like once you leave body and you're looking at your lives as a collective, I think it's just, you're just laughing. Like, how could I have been so adamant about something when really I was that? And I think that's why you kind of, you know, you got to change teams almost. It's like, you gotta, who better to scream it from the rooftops about, who better to be out there rooting for Billie Jean King for the women's rights than in a former incarnation, somebody who was very abusive to women. And who better to be the one? That's the soul that has to go out there and scream and yell about it and scream it from the rooftops. Or who better to be a civil rights leader in this incarnation than somebody who may have been the slave owner or the plantation owner or the guy in ancient Rome with the legions of slaves, you know, in another life. Then in this incarnation, they're out there being the civil rights activists. You know, and that's how it goes. Who better to scream it from the rooftops than the person who implemented that abuse in the first place? See, that's how it really works. And as far as like racism goes too, that's just crazy. You've been every race. I've seen myself as pretty much every race. I have been Native American in several incarnations. I've been Asian, and I've also been like Polynesian, Islanders. I've been like the South American Islander, or you know, people down there, Mesoamerican people. I've been black. You know, I've seen myself in all sorts of different things. And if you look at my time travel movie, I was in the voting booth, and it was some kind of oversoul moment where I had to pick up my arm and look, because you know, you haven't always been white or black or whatever you are in this, you know, earthly carnation. You've been everything. So to hate these other people for that is just really hating yourself. I had an example of racism with a past life thing that I saw. It was just a long time ago, and he probably has come a long way since then, but I was in a band with a guy, and his parents were from the South, and he had some racial stuff. He would say things, and I would tell him, look, I don't like that, but anyways, so we're playing together. He's a drummer, and he's white, of course, in this incarnation. And we're playing together, I look over at him, and he turned black. He turned into this other, I saw him in a past life, and he was this black guy with a tiny little mustache and a beret. I think it was jazz. I think it was probably, he looked kind of jazzy, or maybe early beatniks or something like that. So I saw that, and of course, I didn't want to tell him, because first of all, he didn't believe in any of the psychic spiritual stuff, and then secondly, he definitely was not very liberal, you know, quite the opposite. But as it happens, I kept seeing it, and when that happens, how I have to break that cycle is I have to tell them. I have to tell the person, no matter what it is. If I keep seeing something for somebody, if I tell them, I'll stop seeing it, it'll stop. So Spirit was nagging me, basically, to bring it up to him. So finally I did. I said, you know, in another life, we were black jazz musicians, and we played together in a past life. Well, that didn't go over too well, you know, so he didn't believe it. I stuck my neck out there and told him. But at any rate, so here, you know, and this must have been fairly a recent incarnation, because, you know, he looked with the beret and the jazz, he looked from the jazz era. And I've had a lot of flashes, connections to that. Well, first of all, I feel like I've probably played the Cotton Club. I always had this affinity and this, like, I hung around there, I played there in another life. And then I had another vision of a band that I was in a group of musicians traveling probably in the 50s. And we were actually, that lifetime, we were hiding out in this restaurant, and this redneck in a truck is coming, and I think he lynched at least one of us, who was my brother in this incarnation. Even though he had a good ear, they test you in school to see if you have, you know, you can hear tone, you can hear, you know, high and low tone. And he was tested in, and he never wanted to play music, even though he had natural ability. They test you for that. And we were traveling in, you know, we all wore the matching suits and everything, you know, it was one of those kind of bands, and we were hiding, whoever at the restaurant hid us out in the back room. But then I see the guy coming, and I know my brother got killed then, like, think lynched, you know, my brother. I don't know if we were brother, you know, siblings in that incarnation. We were bandmates for the very least. So I think, you know, I must have been older then, you know, because if I was in the Cotton Club and that was like the 50s, that would have been later. But that's a story for another day. I'm not here to talk just about all my past lives. But the point is that you've really been everything. And also, the other thing that, you know, people get all bent out of shape about is religion. And people hate each other based on religions, you know. And this, I never hated anybody based on religion, but I used to get really irate with people when they would come knocking on the door trying to convert me. I would get into arguments with them, and like I have the right to my own spiritual beliefs. And I would get into these encounters with these people, and I don't do that anymore. But then I was shown a lifetime where I was this priest or minister, and I was trying to convert these Asian slaves again. There's a slave tie-in. I didn't catch that before. But anyways, they were the Asian slaves doing the railroad, and I was there some sort of like a missionary, and I was trying to convert them to Christianity, you know, and they didn't want to hear it. And I think they may have even killed me in that lifetime too. Or, you know, people may have been in the Crusades, you know, anytime you're fighting or killing over religion, you've been every single religion. You really have, you know. So anybody who's adamant and wants to hurt or kill, or my religion is only the right way, you know, your oversoul is laughing. That's all I can really say about it, you know, because, well, I guess, again, who better to scream it from the rooftops? Who better to defend that religion than somebody who in another life may have oppressed or denied it, or, you know, shouting some other religion is right, you know. So all of these things, I mean, it all is, it's, when you know what it really is all about from the big picture, it's crazy to get upset about it, any of it, you know, because you really are, it's all you. It's all of us, and we've all been everything, and we're all going to continue to be everything probably in future incarnations too. So I guess, you know, I'm just saying, don't be a hater. Simple as that. Or even in the Bible it says, you know, judge not lest thee be judged. And meaning, you know, it's going to come back. Or put it real bluntly, karma's a bitch. People say that all the time. All right, so I wanted to talk, one more thing I wanted to mention. I saw a video of Nora Harold, and she had a really great analogy. She said, you know how kids go outside and they play cops and robbers? You know, you're going to be the good guy and I'm going to be the bad guy. And then, you know, it's fun, we do it, and then we come back in and we're all friends again. And I think that's such a great analogy. And that's what these incarnations are like here. You know, we're, I'll be the good guy and you'll be the bad guy in our personal relationship. Or, you know, I'm going to be this religion because before I hated that religion, or thought they were wrong, or thought they were less than in somehow. So now I'm going to be on the side that brings them back up. And what we're really going for is unity, harmony, and everything. So that's really the route to take. You know, learn the lesson. Don't be a hater. I had a couple of rock and roll quotes that I wanted to do. I was going to do one of the Rush, all the world's indeed a stage, and we are merely players, which is actually stolen from William Shakespeare, not stolen, borrowed. But then I changed my mind. And then I thought, what a better quote, because we've got to free our mind of all these bigotry of any sort, religious, spiritual, racial, sex, you know, male, female, sex discrimination. We've really got to free our minds of all that. So who better to quote than the band, the Funkadelics? So short and sweet, here it comes. Free your mind and your ass will follow. Okay, this is Vicki Burley, the Rock and Roll Prophetess. Thank you so much for watching my videos and donating. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing my videos. Remember, you are love and beauty incarnate. And I'll speak to you soon.
What is orgonite? Originally discovered in the 1930s by Wilhelm Reich, orgone energy, or etheric energy, is present in living things including the human body. Reich proposed that illness occurs when our etheric body is out of balance, and that positive orgone energy could realign the etheric field, thus facilitating healing and balance of one's life force, chi or prana. It has since been scientifically proven that energy called piezoelectricity, meaning electricity resulting from pressure, is created by the compression of certain materials such as quartz crystals, wood, salt, sugar, ceramics, and bones. As the resin cures in an orgonite piece, it shrinks and compresses the organic matter contained within. The energy emitted creates a positive energy generator. You really can feel the energy coming forth from these pieces. Orgonite clears the air and neutralizes negative emotions as well as electronic clutter from our high-tech devices. Each orgonite piece is lovingly hand-created using intuitive pairing of materials to enhance and raise vibration and aid in ascension and a spiritual awakening. I use materials from nature, including the bark from a sacred willow for grounding, and gold flakes to emulate the golden light basking down from the higher dimensions. Visit my Etsy shop for a wide selection of handmade orgone pieces, especially designed for spiritual growth, including heart opening, chakra alignment and activation, and more. Visit www.orgoneenergyflow.etsy.com to see more beautiful orgone pieces. And remember, you are love and beauty incarnate.